Hello class, welcome to College Quantitative Reasoning. My name is Matthew Sokol and I'm going to be your instructor for the course. I'm really excited to be working with you for this class, and I'm really excited about the topics we're going to be learning about in the coming lectures and in the coming weeks of our course. And so what I want to do in this video here is I just want to give you kind of an introduction to the topics of the class. Just what are we going to be learning over the next couple lectures and throughout the entire course, and kind of just get you excited for this class. Now, I love teaching this class. The topics are really fun, and it's really just a great class. So I'm glad you're with us, and let's get started. Okay, so what's this course all about? Okay, so this is a course in quantitative literacy designed for students, and this is phenomenal right here. Students in liberal arts, social science, and the humanities. So this is a course designed for non-STEM majors. Okay, so what that means is we're not going to be doing things like a lot of algebra or calculus or trigonometry. What we're going to be doing, as you can see in the next sentence here, is we're really going to be talking about the practical aspects of mathematics. Okay? A lot of the problems we do in this class, you'll see, are directly relatable to the real world. All right? Almost every problem is. Almost all of them. Are so directly related to the real world. Okay, so these are the topics we're going to work through. We're going to talk about problem-solving techniques, personal finance using a graphing calculator. I'll also show you, some methods not necessarily using the graphing calculator, but the graphing calculator will be really important for the course. Organizing and analyzing data, if you think about it, right? Like data's everywhere in the real world. So this is going to be talking about giving like a raw set of data, how you organize it, and then how you can analyze it. The normal curve, methods for counting, applications of elementary probability, and a little bit of mathematical research on the internet. Okay, so the way I see the course, or the way I've set up the course, okay. So this is how me sees the course. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is problem solving. So just, these are going to be situations where you're given like a real world, I hate to say this, real world word problem, and I'm going to show you methods for solving those word problems. Then the next section we can talk about is sets, and what sets are is they're groups or collections of elements. And then we're going to branch into something called Venn diagrams. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then section 3 is going to be probability and counting. And I'll be honest with you at the start, the probability tends to just be, for some reason or another, the hardest section of the class, but it's also the most fun. And then we're going to get into data and statistics. So, analyzing data, and then we're going to learn some basic foundations of statistics. We're going to talk about something called correlation and regression, which is a really fun section. And then the last thing we're going to end on is personal finance. And for these sections right here, okay, this data and statistics, correlation and regression, we're going to use a TI graphing calculator. I'm also going to show you how to use a little bit of Excel. Right, just that's a phenomenal tool to help you. It's a really good tool, and we're going to primarily rely on the TI calculator. Okay, so what I'm hinting at here is if you don't have a TI calculator, you should probably go out and get one at this point. But I'll show you how to use Excel and also some other technology resources for this. Okay, from the internet. Okay. So let me talk about each section in a little bit more detail for you. Okay. Okay. So the first thing, problem solving. We're gonna focus on three major topics in problem solving here. We're gonna start with a review of percents. Then we're gonna do proportions and rates, and then we're gonna talk about some geometry, a little bit of geometry. And unfortunately, what this section is a lot of word problems. And I know many times students hear the word problem or hear the phrase word problems and get very nervous. I don't, word problems are so difficult. I promise you, I'm going to, show you methods and break it down so that it's digestible and you're going to have strategies for solving. All right, next we're going to move into sets. And so remember what I said sets are. Sets are a collection or group of elements, right? Or you can think about it as objects too. And so there's four topics. We're going to talk about the basics of sets and the operations on sets. And I'll be forthcoming here. This is not the most fun, but it does allow us to start then talking about things called Venn diagrams and doing survey problems. And I personally think these are a ton of fun. So Matt finds these very fun. All right, so the basics and the operations of set are also the easiest parts. That might be why they're not so fun. It's very, very routine. But then when we get into these things called Venn diagrams and survey problems, those are really a lot of fun. And you might have seen Venn diagrams before. They look like, and if you haven't, that's okay. They look like two circles overlapping, or maybe even three circles overlapping. And there's a lot of really interesting problems you can do from them. All right, then we're going to get into probability and counting. And this is going to be probably our longest section, actually. And there's going to be a ton of topics, all right? But, we're going to start with real basic probability questions first, like coin flips and die rolls. We'll even work a lot of casino games. Okay, we'll do games like, I'll talk about the game of craps, and we'll even talk about a roulette a little bit. Then we'll get into advanced probability methods. These are, we'll start introducing rules, things like the general addition rule, the general multiplication rule for independent events, general multiplication rule for dependent events, conditional probability, all these advanced rules. Then we'll talk about different counting methods, and then we'll talk about, the last thing we'll do is we'll talk about using probability using counting methods. So literally, one of the last questions we'll do in this section is we'll do a lottery question. So hopefully you've heard of the Powerball lottery. So last question we'll do is, if you buy just a single ticket, what's the probability you win Powerball? And I'll give you a hint, it's very small. Very, 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 very small. But yeah, so we're going to work all these range of problems. And I find this section very, very interesting personally. On a personal note, I used to live in Las Vegas when I was younger. And, I got to see probability in action at in the casinos every day. So, well, not every day, but you get the idea. So you'll find that I'm very passionate when you watch my lectures for this. I really enjoyed this section. Okay, next, we're going to talk about data and statistics. And so we're going to first start talking with like the basics of statistics, talk about sampling, bias, and sampling. So this will be kind of like the terminology of statistics. Kind of like the high overview of it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then talk about methods for describing data visually. We'll talk about things like bar charts, histograms, pie charts, box plots, things like that. And then we're also going to talk about ways you can describe data numerically. You might have heard of things like this: the mean, the median, the mode. Those numerical measures. We'll talk about something called like the range. And then we'll even talk about something called the standard deviation. And for a lot of these computational values, I'm going to show you, in my lectures, you'll see I'll do it by hand once or twice. And then what I'll say is, okay, all right, we've seen Matt do it by hand. Now let me show you an easier way. And this is when I'll start introducing like your graphing calculator and showing you other technological resources for finding these. All right, then we're going to move into section 5 of the course. Okay, this was that correlation and regression. And so what the whole point of this section is what we want to do is we want to talk about describing the relationship between two variables. Okay, so for example, suppose what I mean by two variables here is, and as I write this, think if they're related, okay? Think about the variable, the square footage of a home, and the sale price of the home, how much the house would sell for. Do you think these two variables are related? Absolutely. Yes, they're related, right? Like the larger a home, right, the more square footage a home has. Obviously, everything else being equal, okay, there's a lot of factors, right, that go into the sale price of a home. But if the other factors are equal, a larger home is just going to sell for more money, right? So they're related. Okay. So what we want to do in this section is now we want to study that relationship. So we'll learn about scatter plots. This is a visual representation of the relationship. We'll learn about correlation. This puts a number, measures the relationship with a number. And then the last thing we'll talk about is this concept of what's called regression. And what regression does is it models the relationship. So we're going to fit the relationship with a mathematical equation. And this section we're going to rely very, very heavily on technology to help us solve. So either using a TI calculator, or I'll show you, Excel for this, and then I'll also show you maybe some other websites to help you with this. And then the last section we're going to talk about is this personal finance. And, money is a part of our society, for better or worse, right? And so, we're going to talk about things like simple and compound interest, basically like if you borrow money, how much you have to pay in interest, or if you leave your money in a bank, how much you'll get in interest. Then we're going to talk about annuities. And there's what are called payout annuities or paying into an annuity, and then that will roll that concept of annuities into things like loans. Like we'll talk about car loans when you get a car loans. Then we'll also talk about mortgages a lot. That'll be the last thing we talk about in this class. So when you go to buy your first home, how much is your monthly payment? So that's what we're going to figure out. We're gonna end on finding the monthly payment of a mortgage. And I hope that, having seen me go into this a little bit more detail, you're excited for the course. And, you can see a lot of these concepts are directly relatable to the real world. And, you use them a lot in your daily life. And, as you go through the course, I'm always going to be here to help you. And if you need anything, I'm only an email away.